Akiha Tohno, born into a life she never chose. Every choice, every impulse, every fragment of desire was measured against the weight of a bloodline that demanded obedience, precision, and sacrifice. She grew up under the scrutiny of the Tohno household, a lineage steeped in power and curse alike. Her world was defined not by freedom, but by inheritance. Every day was a lesson in restraint, every act a negotiation with legacy pressing down upon her. To live as Akiha Tohno is to exist in a constant balance between authority and suppression. As Soren Kierkegaard once wrote, the most painful state of being is remembering the future, particularly the one you'll never have. In Akia's life, this is not philosophy, but a fact. She remembers the life she'll never lead, the moments stolen by duty, the relationships she can never fully nurture, the self she must constantly cage to survive. Blood is her inheritance, yes, but it's also a reminder. Autonomy is a luxury she cannot afford. Yet within this rigid structure, there is tension that defines her existence. It is her inhuman blood coursing through her veins, the crimson vermilion lying dormant beneath her skin. When that blood awakens, Akiha teeters on the edge of derangement, a brutal reminder of her very nature. Her mind must suppress what is inherent. To fail is to lose everything, but to succeed is only to survive another day within a potential prison. And it is within the walls of the Tohno household that Akiha's legacy shapes her life, her choices, and the fragile balance between duty and self. Akiha is the current head of the Tohno family, a position heavy with authority and expectation. Her life is defined by blood, legacy, and the rigid structure of her household. Her family relationships are central to her story, but they are far from simple. Due to the complexity of Tsukihime and by extension Melty Blood, I'll be referring to Shiki Tohno, the main character of Tsukihime, as Tohno, and Akiha's actual brother as Shiki. Her biological brother, Shiki, is a dangerous presence which deserves his own video, but as a refresher, his thwarted attack on Akiha serves as a brutal reminder of their lineage. Akiha survived the attack because of Tohno's interference. As a result, Tohno will be fatally wounded. Akiha returned the favor by giving him some of her life, thus saving his life. Tohno would be sent to the Arima household, which is a branch family of the Tohno family. When Akiha assumed control of the Tohno household after her father's death, one of her first acts was bringing Tohno back, both to keep an eye on him and out of longing. Within the Tohno estate, only Kohaku and Hisui remain as her servants. Akiha kicked out the occupants of the estate upon gaining power. Akiha as a character is complex. Her personality is controlled, serious, and composed, yet protective of those she holds dear. When the Crimson Red Vermilion is activated, the lines between sanity and insanity blur, revealing the high cost of inheritance. When that happens, her strength and speed spike. Her body moves beyond what seems human, but it comes at a cost. When her blood flares, Akiha doesn't just get stronger, her mind begins to fray. She can become unrecognizable and deranged. Akiha's blood marks her in every sense. She carries the Tohno family's inhuman lineage, not as a choice, but as inheritance. It isn't the strongest amongst her relatives, but is enough to make her different, to make her dangerous, even to herself. Looking at it through a psychological lens, it's almost like a dissociative break under extreme stress. The body and mind react to something bigger than themselves. Her derangement isn't mindless, it's the inheritance asserting itself. She's caught in a battle between her own will and the weight of her lineage. Even when she isn't near the Crimson Red Vermilion transformation, her blood shapes her life. It defines how she moves in the world, how she reacts to danger, and how she relates to others. Every decision she makes carries the risk of what she might become. Her heritage is her power, but it's also a cage. Her body and mind are bound to it, whether she wants them to be or not. Akiha's struggle with her blood shows the tragedy of inheritance. The same lineage that gives her life and protection also threatens to take everything from her. Starting with her sense of self, her blood can be seen as freedom and prison at the same time. Akiha's life is defined by moments where her legacy collides with reality, forcing her to act in ways that shape who she becomes. From an early age, she existed under constant pressure. The turning points, the catalyst, made the cage of her inheritance impossible to ignore. Her Crimson Red Vermilion state is always lurking, ready to surge when she's cornered or emotionally overwhelmed. Even small provocations, a threat to the family, the loss of control over her home, or the fear for Tohno's life can act as a trigger. Each event reminds her that the Tohno blood is both a weapon and a predator. Every choice carries consequences far beyond her understanding. These catalysts are never isolated. The death of her father, the responsibility of the household, the isolation imposed by her power, and the fragile relationships she clings to all converge. In the larger Nasuverse context, these catalysts show that Akiha is not simply a girl with abilities. She's a prime example of someone who deals with blood, tradition, and inevitability. Her struggles highlight the cruelty of inheritance, the circumstances of birth, the weight of family expectations, and the dormant forces that dictate the path of her life. Ultimately, these catalysts are what makes her existence a prison. They force her into action, test the limits of her control, and shape her as a person. Her life is a continuous negotiation between who she is, who she must protect, and the inhuman legacy flowing in her blood. Akiha's life is a constant negotiation between duty, desire, and survival. But there is another perspective that we, as Tsukihime and Melty Blood fans, often overlook, and that is a psychological strain that she has to deal with. As mentioned, internally, she struggles to maintain control over her Crimson Red Vermilion potential, a power that left unchecked erases her reason and reduces her to a raw, violent instinct. Canon shows that when her blood surges, she becomes deranged, consumed by the very inheritance that defines her. The Tohno bloodline acts like a double-edged sword. It grants her immense ability, yet carries the constant risk of mental collapse. Her relationship with Tohno anchors her humanity, but it also acts as a source of possessive tension. She loves him deeply, and her devotion carries traces of jealousy. Anyone who interacts with him becomes a potential rival in her mind. This possessiveness intensifies her psychological strain, particularly when her bloodline's influence grows. It should be noted that Akiha can maintain somewhat normal relationships with characters that Tohno interacts with under normal circumstances. For example, she somewhat tolerates Arquaid and respects CL in a sense. But when her power activates, the line between protector, predator, and her devotion intertwines with her possessive impulses. Externally, the pressures are unrelenting. As the head of the Tohno household, she must navigate family obligation, societal expectations, and the judgment of every observer in her elite circle. She makes deliberate decisions like keeping her only loyal maids, Hisui and Kohaku, in the residence after her father's death, removing all others who might challenge her authority or disturb the fragile balance in her home. Even these choices reinforce the prison of legacy. Every action, however strategic, isolates her further, binding her more tightly to the family's weight. Supernatural threats compound her struggle. Encounters with other inhuman beings, her bloodline's latent abilities, and the ever-present potential for the Crimson Red Vermilion's activation create a life where no moment is entirely safe. In the Nasuverse, Akiha shows the recurring pattern of tension caused by family bloodlines. She is a reflection of how legacy, both supernatural and social, can enforce isolation, shape morality, and dictate choices. She is a lens through which we can explore broader themes: the tension between duty and self, the dangers of inescapable power, and the emotional and psychological toll of family expectations. Ultimately, Akiha matters because her existence forces us to confront the consequences of inherited responsibility. She is a character whose life is defined less by her actions than by the pressure she endures, providing a stark example of tragedy, endurance, and the limits of autonomy within the Nasuverse. Akiha's life is ultimately defined by the inescapable weight of inheritance. Every choice, every relationship, every moment of self-restraint is dictated by her family's bloodline and the legacy of the Tohno household. She survives not through freedom, but through endurance, control, and constant negotiation between her personal desires and the expectations placed upon her. As Jean-Paul Sartre once wrote, "Freedom is what you do with what's been done to you." This captures Akiha's life perfectly. Her life is framed by the circumstances of birth, power, and duty, but she carves her own path, bringing Tohno back into the main household, maintaining only Hisui and Kohaku at her side, and balancing the surges of her blood. These are acts of agency that shows Akiha is capable of acting on her own. Even in a life shaped by inheritance, she exerts what control she can, highlighting the subtle power of endurance under limitation. Akiha's existence reminds us that the weight of legacy is not only external, but internal, shaping identity, thought, and emotion long after the circumstances that created it are gone. In understanding her, we confront the tragedy of inheritance itself, a life bound by expectation, yet never without agency. And so, we must ask, when a life is defined by blood and duty, freedom ever exist? Or is it only an illusion that we chase?